The Henri Nouwen Society is pleased to welcome you to listen to Henri Nouwen presenting his personal experience of coming home to himself. Henri was a Dutch priest-writer who lived most of his adult life in North America, teaching at Notre Dame, Yale, and Harvard. Despite having the largest classes in the history of Harvard University, Henri lived with a deep personal restlessness that continuously drove him to reflect and deepen his inner spiritual journey. At age 54, he left the university world, and he lived the last 10 years of his life as pastor in the small interfaith community of L'Arche Daybreak in Toronto, Canada. You can learn more about Henri by visiting the website henrinouwen.org. Daybreak is a member community in the International Federation of L'Arche, founded by John Vanier in the small village of Trolly in France. L'Arche is the French word for the Ark, seen in Noah's time as a place of safety during the flood. At L'Arche, we welcome people with intellectual disabilities who cannot make it on their own, and there they live with their assistants and they all make home together. You can discover more about L'Arche Daybreak by visiting the website l'archedaybreak.com. In the 3 short excerpts here, Henri describes his journey from loneliness to L'Arche and from L'Arche to a second loneliness. And he uses the Rembrandt masterpiece of the gospel parable of the return of the prodigal son found in Luke's Gospel, chapter 15. The talks in their entirety have been edited and published in the book Home Tonight, Doubleday, 2009. Please purchase this book at the henrinouwen.org website. Also, watch the website for the opportunity to purchase the CD of Henri's entire 3 talks. Now, listen to Henri Nouwen.
I just want to tell you one story, that's all. And that's the story of the prodigal son. So it's very simple. And I want that story to descend from the mind into the heart, so that you have something to look at. And I will say quite a few things, but I give you already now permission to forget them all, as long as the images can grow in your heart and the story that I want to speak about will gradually become your own most intimate story. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about myself. I think it's good that you know where I'm coming from. By that I mean spiritually. Because everything I say comes from me. And it's sometimes good to know the suffering as well as the joy out of which words are born, because otherwise you listen to an essay, and that's not very interesting. You can read essays, but I want you to know why I say what I say and where it comes from, so that you can take a little distance too. You can say, well, my life is different, and therefore I can listen in without having to think that that's it. My life has a different story, and I want to connect with your story, but that might be a connection that is new. So whatever you hear should not oppress you, but set you free. And it sets you free when you know that it is Henri Nouwen's story, and that gives you a chance to enter it and pick up little things here and there and let the rest go. Because you want to know your story and how God is calling you. I want to talk about 2 little movements in my life. One is from loneliness to L'Arche, and the other is from L'Arche to loneliness. And I think both are important. My life has been dominated by 2 strong voices. One voice that says, make it in the world and be sure you can do it on your own. And the other voice is saying, whatever you do, even when you pump gasoline the rest of your life, be sure you keep loving Jesus. My father was a little more inclined to say the first and my mother the second. But the voices were strong. Make it up be able to show the world that you can do it by yourself and you're not afraid, and go as far as you want to go and be a man. Be a good older son, and be sure you really do something. And the other one is saying, don't lose touch with the little Jesus, the one who chose humility in the simple way. And I've struggled with that, because one seemed to be asking me for upward mobility and the other for downward mobility, and I was never sure how to do both at the same time. And I guess being the oldest son and being part of a very ambitious family, the voice of the upward mobility quickly won out. I wanted to show the world I could do it. And so I became a hyphenated priest. You know what that is? A hyphenated priest - psychologist. Because I didn't want to just be a priest, I wanted to be a psychologist, somebody who could say, if you don't like priests, at least you might like psychology. So, and I went on my upward mobile way. And from a little Holland, I went to the United States, from the United States to Notre Dame, from Notre Dame to Yale, from Yale to Harvard, and finally my father says, Henry is doing very well. Mother was saying, isn't she losing his face? And when he was at Harvard, teaching about Jesus to hundreds of people from all over, I was wondering if proclaiming the gospel to others wasn't the best way of losing your own face. In a very ambitious institution, interested in the best and the brightest, in power and success, political influence and economic success, talking about Jesus wasn't only easy, but you found yourself pressured in adopting the model of the university. And I felt very lonely there. I couldn't pray very much. I couldn't make good friends. There was no much of a community. Everybody was competing. Everybody was trying to make it. And somehow, very deeply, I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. And finally, I came to visit Lars in Trolli and spent more time, and decided Harvard wasn't the place for me, but maybe I should look into Trolli and so on. And spent a year there, and finally the Daybreak community called me to come there as their priest. Well, that's the first movement, from loneliness to Lars. But there's another one that's harder to talk about, but I still want to mention it to you because it's very important. When I was invited to come to Lars, the word most used is the word home. I come to offer a home for you. John said, maybe we can offer you a home. Our community likes to invite you to become the priest of Lars because we think that we can offer you a home. And that really spoke to me, because my life was always alone. And in a competitive world of universities, that's the way it is. Community is not the word. Institution, yes. Competition, making it. But not community, togetherness, intimacy. And my heart was craving for some sense of belonging, some sense of home. So I came to Lars with that kind of desire.